So here we are again. It's Friday in Singapore, and it's F1 weekend here. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of wonderful Premiership action coming everyone's way this weekend. Starting with the early kickoff on Saturday at Stamford Bridge as Chelsea entertain Arsenal. Now, there's always a huge subplot when Mourinho and Wenger face off. Although, if you believe the internet. This week, and some videos doing the rounds, those two have at least kissed and made up. Definitely worth a look if you haven't seen it. I especially like the Black and Decker reference. But anyway, moving swiftly on to the football, I think this is a really fascinating game and probably the biggest Chelsea-Arsenal game for years. Chelsea just simply cannot afford another loss. If results went against them this weekend, they could actually end up bottom of the league. I mean, that's just an incredible thought. I mean, Wenger has come off second best to Mourinho through his entire career. I mean, the Community Shield aside. I mean, so the irony would be if he could really hammer another nail into Mourinho's coffin in waiting at the moment. But at the same time, for Chelsea, they looked revived almost against Maccabi, who admittedly were poor, so let's not read too much into that. But the selection looked fresher. I'd like to see Loftus-Cheek start again. Oscar hopefully will start, and I'd like to stay with Baba Rahman. If Chelsea can win, they're only within 3 points of Arsenal, and that really sort of puts things in a bit of context. I think Chelsea are really just one or two good results from sort of getting back on track, but if they lose to Arsenal, then, you know, the storm clouds really are gathering. So this should be a cracking game, plenty to watch on the pitch as well as on the touchline, and not for the faint-hearted, I think. Now, the second thing I'll be looking out for this weekend is Aston Villa versus West Brom. Actually, that's a fib. I won't be looking out for that at all. But I will be looking to St James's Park, where Steve McClaren is unfortunately under mounting pressure. Now, McLaren's a bit of a figure of fun in the English game. You know, the Wally with the brolly. There was the whole Steve McLaren thing when he was in Holland. I don't know how bad my Steve McLaren Dutch impression was, but I still maintain that there's a very good coach there, and I think he's a very decent guy, but the results don't lie, and Newcastle are toiling. They're not scoring goals, and they've got some tough fixtures coming up. At home to Watford is a fixture I feel they absolutely have to win, given the fixtures they have coming up. They simply need to start scoring goals and to start winning. Otherwise, the pressure on McClaren is going to mount. I mean, there's a lot in this Newcastle team to look at and to like and to think that there's a lot of promise, but they simply have to start getting some points on the board. You know, the weeks are passing by. As I say, there are tough fixtures coming up. McClaren really needs to dig out a win. Watford should be a team that they can beat, but the problem is it's a two-edged sword, and if they don't beat them, then, you know, people are going to start asking some serious questions. So McClaren badly needs a win. Now, the third match that's really got my attention this weekend is Swansea-Everton. Now, I have to admit that I don't ever really like admitting that I might be wrong about something, even possibly entertaining that possibility. And I've been very critical about Martinez in the past, but I've seen Everton twice this season, away to Southampton and at home to Chelsea, and they were excellent in both games. They still don't have a very big squad, but they're playing some really good football, and I think this will be a really entertaining fixture. I think Swansea have looked really good, but then they were poor against Watford. You know, I think if they want to have something more than just another mid-table, finish this season, these are the kind of games where I think they really need to take the bull by the horns and really put in a good performance and get a victory at home. For Everton, I mean, look, there's a lot to be optimistic about. I mean, there are a lot of clubs around them, Liverpool, Spurs, I mean, even Chelsea, who are not playing well. So there are definitely, European spots up for grabs. I think the top four is a stretch. But if they can build on that home performance against Chelsea, there's really reason for optimism, given that Martinez is generally a slow starter. If they can get off to a good start this season, then it may be if they can get lucky with injuries that they can have a really strong finish this year. I think this will be a really entertaining game. Two teams that definitely want to play the right way, and I think this could be the most entertaining fixture of the weekend. Now, I think something else really worth keeping an eye on this weekend is Brendan Rodgers and his Liverpool team, who will be entertaining Norwich on Sunday. Now, obviously, they suffered a reverse last week against Manchester United, and Rodgers' tactics were heavily criticised. Things like playing Danny Ings on the wing, which I think he's fairly ill-suited to. Now, Liverpool rested a lot of players for the Bordeaux fixture. I mean, obviously, spooked by the might of the men from Carrow Road they'll be facing on Sunday. But in truth, this is a real must-win fixture for Liverpool, and it could be a bit of a banana skin, no pun intended, with those yellow shirts. I mean, Liverpool have scored 18 goals against Norwich in their last, I think, 4 games it is. But not one of those players who scored one of those goals will be lining up for Liverpool on Sunday, with Henderson out injured and the rest sort of having departed the club. Liverpool next month have got to go to Goodison Park. They have to go to White Hart Lane, and they have to go to Stamford Bridge. They've also got 2 ties in Europe, and their progress is stalling. I think Rodgers needs a really comprehensive home win. The defeat to West Ham will be still fresh in the Kop faithful's mind. Now, I don't think Norwich are as good a team as West Ham, but this is a bit of a free pass for them. I mean, this is not a game where they're expected to get anything. So I think Alex Neil will have his guys up for it. They'll be looking to cause an upset, and this is a big fixture for Liverpool. I think Liverpool absolutely have to get 3 points. I think how Rodgers sets up his team is going to be fascinating, and how he reacts to things if things are not going well on the pitch, any possible substitutions. So we'll be keeping a close eye on Brendan this weekend. Now the late fixture on Sunday between Southampton and Manchester United, I find a really fascinating one. Two Dutch managers who've had their issues. 2 guys I actually have to say I find eminently likeable. Both very charismatic guys, huge presence. But these are 2 teams, Southampton and Manchester United, that I simply cannot work out. I can't figure out whether either of them is any good. I think Southampton, the transfer policy has probably caught up with them. It's not so much a policy. I mean, they didn't want to sell Schneiderlin, and they wanted to hold on to Alderweireld. But I think in losing those 2 plus Nathaniel Klein, they seem to have lost some stability at the back and lost the platform for some of their the fine attacking players that they have. And Manchester United, I mean, I just don't have a clue what to expect from them. I mean, their default setting seems to be mediocre, but they do have wonderful players. Obviously, they'll be without the sadly injured Luke Shaw, and we wish him well. But it's just hard to know what kind of performance you're going to get out of Manchester United. I have a feeling they'll be good enough to sort of scratch a 1-0, that kind of sort of performance that we've seen from them a few times, where we're kind of not convinced, but they still get the result. But I'd really like to see something from Southampton to show us that they can start to, even if they can't recapture the form of last season, at least to show us that they're here for the long run, and that they're still a good side. I think this will be a really, really interesting fixture. As I say, 2 strong characters on the bench. We'll see how that translates to their teams, and for those of us in Singapore, I think this will be one worth staying up late for on Sunday night. So that takes us to the end of the 5 things that I'll be keeping an eye out for this weekend, and let's see on Monday how everything went.